Happy Sunday, Tampa Bay. We're with you for another week here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, like we are every Sunday on WFLA News, talking about Tampa Bay real estate like I have for more than a decade. And this year has been a challenging real estate market. And if you want to stay up to date, make sure to follow us on all of our social channels at The Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, you name it, at The Duncan Duo for any of our social channels, and get your own home value estimate at duncanduo.com. Again, that's duncanduo.com. And so speaking of home values, and I know I've talked a lot about this on the show about how challenging our real estate market has been. But I want to statistically give you some details about what we're seeing in the market in September and October. I talked on the show, last week. We saw the worst back-to-back months in our market's history. That's even going back to the Great Recession. We saw 3,500 sales roughly in both September and October. Peak was near 7,000. So we're and that is in between, that's Hillsborough and Pinellas County. So we're around half the last couple of months, the number of total home sales. So half the amount of demand, which means fewer showings, fewer contracts, less activity. And so I want to go through the stats, and then I want to talk about the why behind it. But to give you a perspective, in May of this year, we had 5,800 sales, and then we had 3 months in a row, as well as March, hovering right around 5,000 sales. So while we weren't quite at the 7,000 of peak, when you go from 5,000 to 3,500, that's a 30% drop in the number of homes sold. So, and a lot of those sales that happened in September and October were contracted before the storms, either that got pushed because of the storms and ended up closing. So the actual demand is even lower than what we're showing. And I think we're going to see some of that reflective in November, December, because what I'm seeing is fewer showings, less buyer demand, and less activity overall in a lot of different price segments. We do have a really broad geographic market, though, so there are areas of town and price points and product types that are doing better than others. But let's talk about the average sale price. We're at $474,071. Compare that to June of this year, we were $507. So we have seen about a 5% drop in home values since the summer. Our 474 of this year in October compared to last year, it was 479. And September was 489 last year and 475 this year. So we are seeing depreciation in Hillsborough and Pinellas County when all product types are factored in. So that is all residential real estate. Now, you can drill down and look specifically and see that the depreciation is worse in condos than it is in single-family homes, as well as the inventory, the supply and demand curve. There are still inherent problems in condos that were happening prior to the storms. The milestone surveys that were required, the building that collapsed in Miami that caused a massive increase in condo and HOA fees because of massive increase in insurance, all contributed to the downward trend on the condo market. So, speaking of other statistics, we are at 97% list to sell price ratio. We've been at that most of this year. Peak was 100 and 101. So we're still not selling for drastically below asking, but we have seen softening in price and we have seen softening in negotiation. So sellers have to be more receptive to paying concessions, more receptive to price reductions. The market isn't, unfortunately, in the favor of the seller as much anymore. Days on market continues to trickle up as well. A year ago, it was 41. Today, it's 67. That's nearly a 50% increase in the number of days it takes to sell a home, and that number is continuing to rise. Additionally, we have 4.96 months of inventory. That is the second highest amount of inventory we've seen in more than a decade. The first highest was last month at 5.33. So we do have rising inventory, and I believe that trend, I wouldn't be surprised to see us, at 6 or 7 months of inventory within a few months where you start to talk about being more of a buyer's market. And I've talked about this before, how we have two separate real estate markets going on. We have a single family home, and then we have the multifamily kind of condo, townhome stuff. And the condo market is performing worse than the single family market for sure. And it is definitely a buyer's market when it comes to condos. We will have clients call us to sell a condo and we'll look at it and there are 25 for sale and one that sold in the last month. So the saturation rate is very unfavorable towards sellers when it comes to condos. If you are not pricing your condo, first off, if you don't have to sell your condo, maybe you shouldn't. And if you have to sell it, you are going to have to price it super aggressive. Forget what sold 6 months or a year ago. That's fantasy land. It's over. You missed it. So now, with as many condos are on the market, prices are definitely softening, depreciating, and it is a buyer's market in many condo communities throughout Tampa Bay. So the 5 months of inventory, we've always said below 6 months is a seller's market. And so we've been a seller's market, for at least 6 or 7 years in Tampa, below 6 months of inventory. We are starting to creep to the point where we may surpass the 6 months of inventory over the next few months, which turns us into a market that is more typical of a buyer's market. Some other statistics to look at. Again, I mentioned the hovering around 5 months of inventory. We were 3 months early in the year. So a more than 50% increase in the month supply of inventory. So why is that happening? Why are our statistics showing depreciation? Why are we seeing homes sit longer on the market? Why are we seeing, when I look at the analytics, why are we seeing far less, buyer traffic, far less showings? Well, really three things. First, the overall economy as a whole has had some problems for a while. We know that interest rates have risen. We know prices have stagnated. We know it's become more unaffordable in Florida. So as prices go up on real estate and interest rates go up and insurance goes up, eventually something has to give. Well, what has been giving is prices. We saw a run up for, more than a decade of increase in home values into 2023. And since then, so our average sale price in May of 2023 hit 470, or actually it hit it in May of 2022, it hit 475. Well, we're still 475 today, 2.5 years later. So we have not seen much appreciation, if any, in our entire MSA for the last couple of years. And that's because of high interest rates and economic conditions. They're now starting to balloon. You add on top of that two, I would say like two of the worst storms Tampa Bay has ever seen, from flooding and damage, and a presidential election, all on top of that right before the holidays. And it's literally the perfect storm of how could you create a recipe to make Tampa Bay's real estate market, drop in sales and drop in value. That is kind of the perfect storm. So we've got all these economic events. You've got an election. You've got two storms, all contributing to a black eye on Tampa Bay. And what has fueled our real estate market for the last decade plus is a continual increase in population. During COVID, some of the draconian COVID measures in northern states moved people down here. Some of the ability for people to work remotely caused them to retire sooner or move down here. We saw a massive population increase, which was driving demand for real estate and driving prices up because our population was growing. Well, now, post-storm, and again, there's no way to know for sure where we'll be in 6 months or a year, but we suspect we're not going to see population growth for a while. So in addition to all these economic indicators and sellers wanting to sell and leave because of the storms, now we're having people say, well, now I don't know if I want to go there because I saw that devastation on TV, and they don't show sunshine and rainbows every day on CNN and Fox News. They only show it when we have a storm. So when that's the national news media story that we got hit with two really bad storms, it makes people not want to move here. So it reduces our demand and increases the number of people that wish to exit and sell. So all of these things, and then of course you had a polarizing presidential election that caused buyers to sit on the fence and say, you know what, I'm going to wait until after this election before I buy or sell. And especially with the storm, they wanted to wait and see. We were already hearing that from countless consumers before the storms ever showed up, that buyers were waiting until after the election. So all of these things have caused fence sitting. And until or unless we start to see population growth kind of start to trickle back in our direction and interest rates, some relief to make things a little bit more affordable, I think we're going to be in this similar place where we start to see some depreciation in our market. Not massive. We're not talking great recessionary stuff. We're not talking, huge drops, but I don't see us getting values rising or a dramatic increase in home sales until things get more affordable and we get population growth back. So population growth coming back, it's hard to say when that'll happen. It's unpredictable because the storms that we had right on the heels of an election and right before holiday season, it's really unprecedented. There's no model for it. So hopefully we start to see the market come back. We see demand come back. We see, improvement in population, and we see interest rates soften, and that could ultimately fuel a rebound of our real estate market. But until then, it's going to be a grind. It's the homes that are going to sell are going to be the ones that are the most aggressively priced, the ones that are in the best condition. The idea that you could throw something on the market like you could a couple of years ago that needed a bunch of work and it would fly off the shelf, that's just not likely right now. We are going to see a transition from a seller's market to pretty close to a buyer's market in residential real estate over the next couple of months. And again, of course, there are segments of the market that buck the trend one way or the other. Of course, there are neighborhoods that do better than others. But when we're talking about the MSA and Tampa Bay overall, that's going to be the trend of what we're going to continue to see. And I haven't even gotten to the ramifications of what happens from the storm-damaged homes that can't get repaired and turn into foreclosures or short sales. So I'm going to talk about that. I want to make sure you guys understand what's coming from that perspective as it relates to Tampa Bay real estate after a quick break here on WFLA News. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. I talked about the storms. I talked about the holidays. I talked about their contribution to our unfortunate current real estate statistics coming out from our local MLS that shows that we are trending towards a buyer's market. We're seeing values drop, not substantially, but slightly year over year. We're seeing dramatically reduced home sales. And now, one extra caveat, and I mentioned the economy being a major contributor to the stagnation of our real estate market, now the potential downward trend post-storms, and it's short sales and foreclosures. So, you had this trend prior to the election where we were starting to get home sellers call us and say, hey, I want to sell my home that I bought in 2022, bought it in a new construction community, got a high interest rate, and I've got to move. And I need to sell. Well, their home hasn't risen enough to cover the cost of sale. They're not in an equity position. They're actually going to lose money that they don't have. Money that they don't have, the $30,000 that they don't have to make up the difference between what the home is now worth and what they owe. So what is the path for them? Well, they can become a short sale where they sell the home for less than what's owed. They damage their credit. They sell the property and get the bank to ask for forgiveness, or they can fight the foreclosure and try and stay in the home for free, hire a lawyer and sit there for, a year or two. And there are plenty of them that will do that. But that was already existing. Well, when you add in the storm element to people who are already underwater or close to being underwater, we're creating a small segment of the marketplace. And I want to be clear, it's a small segment of the marketplace where we're going to see an increase in short sales and foreclosures. And when you get a short sale or foreclosure in the neighborhood, it becomes a comp and it pulls everything down. That's the biggest deterrent to a successful real estate market, is because banks don't want to own real estate and they lower the prices to move the inventory, and then it starts to pull the other comparables down. Now, I want to be clear. There are so many homes in this country that are bought in cash. Okay, that are hedge fund bought, that are bought from consumers with cash, or that have interest rates below 4%. These number of foreclosures is not going to cause some sort of massive downturn in our prices, but it is going to have a short-term negative impact where we might see prices go from $475 to $450. Now, are we going to see prices go from $475 to $200? No, we're not talking Great Recession type stuff. We're not talking that many people affected. We don't have the liar loans. We don't have all of that. But we do have an economy that needs some recovery, and we have people that have high interest rates that don't have equity, and then some of those people got flooded and didn't have insurance. So we are going to see an increase in distressed properties. And like I said, when you have the distressed property in a neighborhood, it pulls the comps down. If you're selling your home and you have some of that going on in your neighborhood, sell it before it shows up, because when it shows up, it's going to pull your appraisal down. Appraisers are going to use it, and then buyers and sellers or buyers are going to use it to negotiate and say, hey, well, this one here was 400. Why is yours worth 600? So if you know there's potential for that in your neighborhood, you obviously would have a desire to get ahead of it. So what is a short sale and how can we help you with one, I think is another question I'm getting a lot right now. So a short sale is, as I've described, someone that is either delinquent on their mortgage, they're behind, they've hit a financial obstacle, they haven't paid, or they're in a negative equity position and are forced to move. That's someone who could potentially be a short sale. And then, of course, you have the crowd of people that got flood damaged and either can't rebuild because they don't meet FEMA's guidelines, or they don't have the money to rebuild because they didn't have insurance, and now they've got to sell what they have as is. And they may owe more on it than it's worth. So that is what's going to happen. We are going to see an increase in the number of short sales because of all of that phenomenon. We have done hundreds of short sales through the years. There were years where I did that many probably. So I've done a lot of them. We have a third-party company that works with us to negotiate. We help provide clients guidance. We recommend attorneys for them to talk to about their own specific financial situation. But a short sale a lot of times can be better on your credit. You can have faster recovery. You can have a little bit more control over the process. And banks want to do them typically. Banks want to do them because we're a judicial foreclosure state, and it costs them a lot of money to foreclose on you. They have to hire a lawyer, and then there's a chance that you hire a lawyer, and there's a chance of a six-figure legal bill coming their way from the hassles and fights to go through the foreclosure process. So, and the chance that the property gets more damaged, that it's not maintained, utilities go off, it gets mold. All of these things hurt the bank's balance sheet. So banks are very pro short sale. Investors on the mortgages, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, they're pro short sale. They don't want to go through a 2-year process and have not only increase their costs, but have the value drop. They're looking at the same data I'm looking at and saying, hey, look, we're not going to see prices go up. We may see prices go down. Now, a year or two ago, they probably weren't as likely to be excited about a short sale because they're like, oh, prices are going up. We can sit on this for a while because the prices are going up faster than this person's debt is increasing. So we have an asset that we have a little control over. But now that that's not the case, I believe banks will be a lot more pro short sale. I know banks don't want to foreclose. They don't want to foreclose because they know what that does. It hurts their ability to lend. It hurts values in neighborhoods, and that effectively hurts them too. So they have figured it out. They more of them want to do short sales. More of them want to try and help homeowners. So if a short sale is something you need, if you need to sell your house, you're underwater, you're behind, and I mean underwater both figuratively and literally, hit us up at duncanduo.com. Make sure to let us know that you are in a negative equity position. We'd love the opportunity to help you kind of get through that. Our services in a short sale are not at an expense to you. The bank ends up paying our fee. So if you are interested in doing a short sale, again, just hit us up at duncanduo.com. And it doesn't matter the price point. We've done multi-million-dollar short sales before. We've done, $50,000 short sales. So if you're someone out there in distress and needed help, again, our services are not at a cost to you. There's no upfront fee to hire us. We get a buyer, we secure them through the process, and the bank ends up paying our fee out at the end when the short sale gets approved. So again, go to duncanduo.com, fill out your value estimate. We'll reach out and talk to you about a consultation to guide you down the right path. So we're going to be back, continuing our conversation after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. Look, we just had one of the most important elections we might have in our lifetime. Very polarizing, obviously, with a lot of people on both sides advocating for their candidates. I think if you're listening to this station, it's pretty clear who I was rooting for. And so what I will say, though, is that, and again, I'm super excited about what I expect for the real estate market post-election. I think there's going to be a lot of pro-real estate policies. Obviously, I think the president has a strong real estate background, understands real estate, was a real estate broker, real estate developer, real estate brand. All these things, I think, give him and the people around him a unique opportunity to help improve our real estate market once the new administration gets into place. However, statistically speaking, no matter who the president would have been, home sales would have increased based on past trends. If you track home sales back across multiple presidential elections, and home sales always increase the year after an election. And so that phenomenon, so we expect, again, obviously because I believe we have a pro-real estate president, but also because the election is over. As I experienced in my business and prior to the storm, there were plenty of consumers saying, I'm waiting until after the election. That happens every 4 years. The last election we had, same thing happened in my business. The election prior to that, I had the same thing happen in my business. So consumers say, you know, we're going to wait because this could be some sort of monumental moment, or they watch the news too much. And look, if you watch the news too much, you'll be scared of your own shadow. Like, it will freak you out. And there are people that are freaked out prior to the election thinking the apocalypse is coming and, you know, that the world is going to end. And they don't want to do anything. They want to hunker down in their house and, you know, buy ammo or bury ammo in the backyard, whatever it is. Okay. And look, I got a little prepper in me too. So I get it. All right. But the reality is every year post-election that we've tracked, back decades, home sales rise. So in addition to the fact that we now got the hurricane stuff out of the way, we now have the election completed, and the election was a pro-real estate president. President Trump, I strongly believe in his ability to guide the economy and guide the real estate market and make decisions that will help reduce regulation to help growth kind of come back to real estate. All of that being said, home sales, I think we're going to increase regardless, but now I think they're going to increase even more. So I do believe, while you hear me talk a lot about the 2024 real estate market, maybe the next few months being a little bit ugly, I believe we're going to start to see a lot of positive stuff happening in 2025 as it comes to real estate. I think we're going to see some more rate drops. I think we're going to see pro-real estate policies. I think we're going to see some deregulation that stalls things. And I believe that naturally, the fear that people have had by paying attention to the national news cycle 24/7 for the last several months will subside once a new administration takes place and things normalize. Then I believe we'll start to get back to having a positive economy. Now, is that going to happen overnight? No. Is there a lot that needs to be done? Yes. However, I think we'll start to see signs of that in 2025. My hope is 2026 is an even better real estate year. We see some more relief in rates. We make it more affordable. We get people back to buying. We hopefully see our population increase. But 2025, in my opinion, will be a very healthy real estate year for all of those reasons. We've also got a lot of pent-up moves. You have people that were waiting pre-storm to move, and now they've pushed it to next year. You had people wait until after the election. You have all this pent-up demand that I believe will start flowing again next year. At least that's certainly my hope. But nonetheless, we are going to see a better year in 2025 than we did in 2024 for real estate. And I think 2026 will even be better because we'll have more hopeful Fed rate cuts, assuming the economy continues in the same direction. So I want to move next. I want to talk about mortgage rates and Fed rates, because there are a lot of consumers that really don't understand this. They hear that the Fed cut rates. So they say, oh, the Fed cut rates a quarter point. So is my mortgage rate going to drop a quarter point? Okay. So here's the reality of it. Fed rate cuts do not immediately or instantly impact mortgage rates. Okay. And your mortgage rate that you have, even if the Fed cuts the rate, if you have a fixed mortgage, your mortgage rate isn't changing. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage and they cut rates, yes, your rate on your adjustable mortgage for your home equity line of credit or credit card, there's a chance that that drops down, okay? But mortgage rates for new loan origination pay a lot of attention to the data and pay a lot of attention to what the Fed says at the Fed meetings, and they anticipate and predict what the Fed is going to do. When the Fed cuts rates as expected, mortgage rates don't change much. So for example, when they said, hey, we're going to have a 1/4 point rate cut on mortgage rates or on Fed rates, mortgage rates didn't just instantly drop a 1/4 point. The market had already factored in a likely 1/4 point drop. If they had dropped 50 basis points, then mortgage rates would have potentially come down even more. So when the Fed moves in a direction that's highly anticipated or highly predicted, even when they cut rates, that rate cut has already been factored in, because mortgage loan originators know that 30, 40, 60 days out, they can start originating loans in that rate ballpark. And then by the time the Fed cuts the rates and the lender goes to borrow that money, that's the rate that's existing. So unless the Fed acts dramatically different than what is expected, and there are a bunch of different websites that you can see this on, but unless the Fed acts dramatically different than expected, then you're going to see the market have already responded. So if a Fed does a rate cut, it's a 25 basis points, and that was what expected, you're not going to see much movement on mortgage rates. But again, if it's expected it's going to be a 0.25 drop and it comes in at 0, or it comes in at a 50 basis point drop, then of course, then you would see some movement. But the mortgage rates have already most of the time made the correct prediction on what's going to happen with Fed rates. And then the mortgage rates ebb and flow with what's going on in the overall economy, bond rates, stock market, all of those types of things. So again, Fed rates and mortgage rates don't exactly correlate in terms of, what they do. Of course, if the Fed drops rates across the board will drop, but mortgage rates have already likely factored in. Hopefully that makes sense for you. Hopefully we see some more Fed rate cuts. I know that there are a lot of people out there in tough financial situations, or people looking at buying and they're saying, hey, look at these interest rates. I don't know if I can afford this. So we're hopeful that the economy continues to move in a good direction to where rates can be cut, because then obviously that makes it more affordable for our buying audience. That moves more people. It certainly increases demand and opens up the buying audience for purchasing. So obviously I'm at this time, I'm certainly pro rate cut, but there's a lot that has to happen for that to continue to happen as well. I want to talk next about HOAs. This is kind of funny because having sold, thousands and thousands of properties within my real estate team, HOAs over the years have become like the bane of my existence, because, again, you have these arbitrary rules sometimes that don't make any sense, and then you have people that don't really have a life that roll around all day on their golf carts and fine people because they didn't cut their tree or because they painted their door a different color. And I think, unfortunately, there are a lot of HOAs that are going way beyond and usurping what they were really intended to do. I think they're intended to keep a community looking nice and, keeping it kept up. But sometimes some of the things we see in terms of when we're selling homes for clients or we're renovating homes, it just baffles my mind. So I want to prepare you. If you're a seller out there and you own a home in an HOA community, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've probably gotten some notice at one point and you're like, what in the world is this? Like, I own my property. If I want to put a basketball hoop in the driveway, or it's a rule and there's 97 pages of rules. First off, you need to read and know the rules, because a lot of consumers don't. And then they get into a community and they're upset because they didn't know they couldn't have their branded work truck in their driveway at 6 o'clock in the evening. So please make sure that you're paying attention to the HOA rules. But also understand that when you buy into a community, whether it's a HOA controlled community or a condo controlled community, you're not just buying into the asset. You don't have complete control over the asset. Okay. You're buying into an asset where you have introduced the ability for someone else to control it. Someone else that may not have any financial background at all. Someone else that may be making decisions that are not based on your best interest, but maybe on their best interest, which may not be financial. So when you move into an HOA and you don't like the decisions that they make, you don't really have you can certainly vote and hope that you can force change within the HOA, but the likelihood is that you're going to be subject to their rules and you're going to have to deal with it. And it can be a major nuisance for a lot of people. It's why me personally, I will never personally live in an HOA community ever. You just sometimes get the Karen that's going to drive around and flag you for something silly and waste your time because they have nothing better to do. So be very cautious when you're buying in an HOA. Read the rules. Make sure that you know what you're signing up for. Make sure you want to deal with someone sending you a fine or telling you can or can't do this. And just be prepared for that, because there are a lot of people that move here from other areas where they weren't in an HOA and they buy in an HOA community. And then they realize, my goodness, I didn't know I couldn't have door handles that were this color, or I couldn't, replace a window unless I got it approved for the architectural review board. Like, imagine going through the storms right now and needing to repair your home so it doesn't have more damage. And then the HOA being the Gestapo telling you what you can or can't do and holding up your process to get your home back into line. And we've dealt with countless customers through these storms that are dealing with some of the most stupid HOA rules you've ever heard in your life, especially considering the circumstances. And people with nothing better to do with their time are the ones that a lot of times get into these situations. And I can tell you that they're not always the most qualified to make decisions for the best of the community. Now, I'm not hating on all HOAs. I'm saying I would never live in one. We've worked with a lot of them that are incredible. We've worked with some of them that really do understand, that really did appoint and elect people that run that HOA that do a phenomenal job, that really do have the best interest in mind, that really do make the community better. But just like politics, sometimes you elect people that maybe you shouldn't have elected, and then that community goes downhill. So again, not all of them. I'm saying I wouldn't choose to live in one. There's some great ones. There's some bad ones, but make sure you know what you're buying into. Make sure you read the rules, you read the bylaws, you understand what's going on in that community, and do your due diligence. And then, of course, be prepared for the decisions that they make on your behalf to control your asset, because they can make decisions that you may only have one of hundreds of votes in that causes a dramatic change in the community and in your asset. So that's why I personally won't live in one. I've owned property in them. I presently own property in them. And I can tell you that, again, sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're not. And when they're not, it can be a major nuisance. So be very cautious if you're looking at buying and you're looking at buying into an HOA community. Make sure you're reading the rules. Way too many people don't read the bylaws. So anyway, we're going to be back. We're going to wrap up our last segment after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. Back here on the Duncan Duo Show, wrapping up with our last segment when we aren't on air, at The Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, all of them at The Duncan Duo, and DuncanDuo.com if you want an instant cash offer. You know what? If you've just had it, if you're frustrated, you don't even want to jump through any more hoops anymore, you want to sell to a local company that has integrity, that isn't sending their money to Wall Street, just hit up DuncanDuo.com, get your instant cash offer, move on with your life, get out. We buy storm damaged properties. We buy, ugly homes. We buy homes that need nothing. But there's a value associated with whatever needs to be done to get it up to par. So we would love to make you a cash offer on your property. Please go to DuncanDuo.com. But I want to make make one point really quick. I just want to listen. I want the consumers to listen to me about when you hear all these cash offers, guaranteed offers, all this kind of stuff. But anyone that's buying your home in those situations isn't paying you the retail price. Okay. Like they're not a charity. Okay, they're not a they're I do a lot of charity, but like we run a business. So if you're calling and expecting, if you look up your property and you run the comps and it's worth 320 and you think somebody in a cash offer situation is going to give you 320, they're not. There's no margin for them. There's no way to do that effectively in today's market where prices are dropping. So you have to expect that a cash offer buyer is going to need a discount. They're going to want to make a moderate return. After all their expenses and fees and commissions, they're going to want to be able to make some improvements to the property and resell it and make a profit that is better than what they get if they just park their money in a 5% savings account. So if they're going to take on that risk, why would they do it if they're only going to make a 5% return? They wouldn't, because there's way too much risk. So again, if you are someone that wants a cash offer, just be realistic. We would love to buy your house. We buy a lot of them. We help a lot of customers move on to their next step and kind of rip the Band-Aid off that don't want to deal with the hassle. It's kind of like trading a car in. When you trade a car into a dealership and you've got a $30,000 car, they might give you $22,000 in trade because they're going to spend some money to renovate it. They're going to put it back on the market and they want to make a little bit of profit. So, when you're selling your house to a cash buyer, think of it like you're trading in your car. You're not going to trade in your car and get every penny that it's worth because, again, the dealership doesn't want to lose money. Okay. The people that are advertising to buy your home, like me, aren't doing it to lose money. We're doing it not necessarily to take advantage, because we'll be clear. We'll show you, hey, look, here's what you get if you do retail. Here's what you get if you sell it instant cash. But we are doing it to turn a profit and run a business. So, again, you're not going to get full retail price in those situations. If you want full retail price, that's why you go the path of hiring us to sell it traditionally. So anyway, right now, maybe the best time for home buyers in 5 years. Housing stock is up, so there's way more options. When housing stock is up, you have more options, but you also have more negotiating leverage. You have more choice. You're not as pressured. You don't have to move quickly. You can take your time. And what does that mean when housing stock is up? It also means you have a much greater ability to negotiate. I even talked to some agents this week that, maybe a couple of years ago, somebody that has a $400,000 house and the client wants to make an offer of $350,000. There's no chance in hell that offer is getting accepted. Back then, people weren't going to take a $50,000 haircut in an appreciating hot market for a brand new listing. Today, a $350,000 on a $400,000 might get accepted. You may find somebody motivated or desperate enough, or looking at the numbers and thinking there could be depreciation, or be motivated enough that they want to get out of town. So you have a greater ability to negotiate when there's more inventory. The more housing stock, again, means an increase in price cuts. We're already seeing that. More homeowners reducing the price. You have time. And you're kind of on the brink of a, you're on the brink of a buyer's market. And so because of that, you have the ability, again, to negotiate. You can take advantage of certain things. And I know people say we don't know what's going to happen with the rates, and we certainly don't. A lot of economists predict in a couple of years rates will be down. So if you can predict and just kind of run the math on that, statistically over time, if rates drop, prices go up. So if you buy in now and you negotiate a great deal, and maybe you've got to have a high rate for a few years, then you refinance later on to take advantage of the rate and lower your payment, but have the equity position you wouldn't have if you waited to buy when rates were down. So hopefully that makes sense. It is an incredible time for home buyers right now to get a great deal. I can tell you showings are down. Activity is down. The end of the year is always the time of year when I find a great deal. I buy a great deal every year towards the end of the year because you get a seller that's just ready to be done. It's the holidays, are ready to move on, close up their year. So if you're a home buyer and you've been sitting on the fence, maybe jump back in, for the end of this year to try and find that perfect opportunity that puts some equity in your pocket and allows you to win in the negotiation. So again, when we aren't on air, at The Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, at The Duncan Duo. Get your home value estimate, get your cash offer, sell your home via short sale, sell your home traditionally. It doesn't matter. We can help you with every path as a home seller. Whatever your motivation level is, whatever your goal is, we have the solution for you. And you can do that at DuncanDuo.com. It's very easy. You can do it on your phone. You can pull off the road right now if you're listening. You can type in your address. You click a couple buttons. It auto-populates all the stuff off your phone. DuncanDuo.com. Get your home value estimate. Get a cash offer. and so much more. DuncanDuo.com. And we are going to have an awesome rest of your weekend. Thanks for tuning in, Tampa Bay.